to see you guys today. How are you?
Oh, good.
Well, we are gathering today to talk about money. We are in this time of year in the church. We call it stewardship. It's really about giving. And, we ask folks to make pledges to give in the new year, which helps us to plan for our ministry budgets and things. And, a lot of nonprofits are doing end of the year drives right now. And so we are going to spend the next 3 Sundays talking about money and what the scripture has to say. And we're going to be doing something different in worship where we have people actually talking with one another and kind of digging into what we've learned about money and our values around money. So we wanted to gather and kind of share our own thoughts about money and where we grew up with thinking about money and all of that. So who taught you all about money?
I can go first. Not to air my family's dirty laundry, but my grandfather owned his own business. He didn't go to college. He purchased a business, grew it to be like multi locations in the city of Dallas, doing television repair. I don't know if you remember, but repair TVs used to be very expensive and they required repair. He was then transitioning to do like satellite and sell satellite dishes, which have then been like bought up by like big commercial industries, right? But towards the end of his life, but I think throughout most of his life, he loved to be very generous with money and to have a lot in his own bank account. And so regularly would gift new cars to people, lots of very fancy clothes to people. I remember as a toddler having a battery power Mercedes that I drove around the neighborhood. Mercedes. And so my early learnings was that money was everywhere and it was good and it made us look awesome. And then when my grandfather died, the business that he owned went bankrupt. My father actually had to close the business and tear it all down, and come to find out like money had been moved around in places, things were not getting paid for that needed to be paid for. And so from that, I learned, I was like 14 when that happened. From that, I learned like money is secrecy. Money can be taken away really quickly. And money has the power to harm people. Because shortly thereafter, not in conjunction to that, my parents got a divorce and they like lived in 2 separate households with separate incomes. And so my image around money then became about like, we're never going to have it again. And if you do have it, you need to hoard it because you don't know when it's going to get taken away. So that's what I was taught about money. Either flaunt it or fear it. What about you, Lindsey?
Wow. Yeah. So I come from, when I describe sort of my family's relationship to money, I usually say that I grew up in the sweet spot of money, where there was enough, right? Like I never wanted for anything in my memory. I never wanted for anything. And there was always a little bit extra if we needed something, right? We could make car payment. We could fix our cars, things like that. But we didn't have so much that it became like an identifying feature about my family or something that we worshiped and sought above all else, right? And I think that's the definition of thriving, right? And so when I talk about socialism, or I talk about like reparations, or I talk about just money in general, like that's what I want for everybody, is to be in that sweet spot of money. But I was also taught to be frugal. Like my parents both came from poverty. My dad's family got out of it. My mom's family never really did. And so there was always this sense, I mean, I'm really resonating with what you're saying, Erin. So even though I don't feel that, and we didn't have, like, we were pretty poor when I was very young. But in my memory, like that, I don't remember that being a thing. And that's probably because of my parents. But I grew up with parents who came from poverty and had that sort of sense of like, you know, they never hoarded money. They were very generous. I remember various people living with us throughout, my childhood. I remember, they always were there to help out when somebody needed it. But also like, no, you don't need the latest cell phone, which I didn't like that was good to learn. No, you don't need to like buy new clothes every month, right? Which I probably didn't learn, but it's a learning I probably need to learn again. But yeah, I mean, I think that sort of understanding of money as that, and I don't know if this is getting at the question, but that understanding of like not hoarding and being very generous, and also not needing to seek money, right? I was lucky. I was lucky to be raised in that atmosphere. What about you, Hope?
Yeah, I mean, I have some similar experiences. I feel like I grew up knowing that money was a blessing, but saving was important and being frugal was important. So, my mom, especially like just making do with what we had and being creative in that. When I was kind of just entering high school, my dad lost his job for a while. So there was this period where money was tight, and I was, kind of old enough to become aware of that. But I also have got this from my parents, the idea of saving so that we could be generous. A lot of times, so when there was a need, whether it was at the church or if someone had a personal need, right? Like they needed a place to stay, or they needed to get their car fixed, or something that that there was money available to help others. And then also saving money to pass on to the family. I think is something so that, you're planning and prepared for the future in a way. So in that way, I mean, I feel like this value of money being security, right?
Yeah.
But in all these things, right, they can be taken to an extreme. And so I think it's helpful for us just to kind of think about, yes, money is a blessing, but I don't think that that's the only way God blesses us. And I don't think that we're not blessed when we don't have money. I think that saving money is good, but I don't think that we don't want to hold on to that tightly. There's not a benefit in that. So, yeah.
What I was very touched by in your story, Hope, is that your parents saved money so they could help others in times of need. And so that kind of leads into our next question. What have you been taught about giving? Or in the church, we use the language stewardship, caring for others. And so one of you want to start? What have you been taught about giving / stewardship?
Yeah. Go ahead, Hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, it was like you save so that you can give, and so that you had this ability to be generous. Tithing was very important. So my dad's a planner. So I learned that, being intentional with your money is important, and planning. And I think also, when I think about money in the church, tithing comes to my mind, right? And for me, that giving that tithe first, when I get money, even when I was younger, when I would earn, money babysitting or something, my parents taught me, to give 10% of whatever that was. And so I learned that at a young age. And I think it's just helped for me when I do that off the top. It helps me remember and keep my priorities in order, that God is the first priority and where I'm going to spend my money.
Yeah, I just remembered this story. I was also taught about tithing, and I watched my parents give, tithing being, giving 10% of your income to the church. And I do that. I still do that. I've always done that. My parents do that. And I remember watching my parents write a check every month and put it in the offering plate. And what I loved was, my parents would get very cranky at the church, and they would be mad about something happening, or they'd be upset, but it would never affect. It was like, well, of course we're going to tithe. This is our community. This is, and this is God's money, right? It's kind of the way that they would talk to me about that. My dad also teaches theology and economics, so there's was a lot going on with money in my household. But I remember this story about my sister and I going on. We used to live in a cul-de-sac in Pennsylvania. And we went door to door collecting money for the offering plate at church, unbeknownst to my parents. Like, they had no idea we were doing this and were mortified when they found out. But we would just knock on the door and be like, hi, can we have some money to give to the offering plate at church? And I think we ended up with like 75 cents in like mostly pennies. And I don't remember this. This is a story that's been told to me. So I don't know that we were actually going to give it to the church. But when my mom found out, she was like, that money is the church's money. You're giving that money to the church. And please don't do that again. But that's how like deeply ingrained it was in me as a kid, that like you give to the congregation, and you give, and it's not a transaction. You're not paying for a service that you like or don't like, and you stop paying when you don't like the way the service is going, right? But it's money that belongs to the community and to the congregation and to God. And it's a way to say, nothing is more important to me than God and the ones that I've committed to in my congregation, including money.
That's so fascinating too, because I think children are just little sponges and they pick up on what adults are doing and then want to mimic that. And so you saw your parents giving.
Right.
Oh man, that's cool. I think I was taught about the tithe, like give 10%. And so I faithfully did that, even though my budget was a minimal. So in college, I had a monthly budget of $100. So $25 a week to live on. I lived in the dorm, I ate in the cafeteria, blah, blah, blah. But outside of that, and I tithed regularly my $10 a month. And so at the end of the year, I would get a giving statement back of $120. I
remember that. Yep.
And I wasn't super proud of it, but I knew I really believed in what my church was doing and loved what they were putting into my life. Like, it was a bunch of not older adults, like 20 somethings who saw me as an equal partner with them and like would invite me over to have dinner with them and go on their boat if they had a like boat ride on the lake in Abilene, Texas, which is disgusting. But I felt like a part of the community. I wanted to give back and invest in that. And it was a very small piece that I could do. And nowadays, I feel like money, there are so many places vying for my attention, for my money. There are ads on Instagram, there are ads everywhere, and I regularly click on them because I think something, new shoes will make me happy. But all these places are begging for my money, like challenging for my money. And when I give to the church, I feel like I am taking power away from these other institutions, other nefarious places that want to use my money, not benefiting the world. And I'm able to give to a place that I benefit from, but also that I hope that the world benefits from as well. And so it's a sense of power for me when I give, to say, this is a place where I see transformation happening, and I'm not going to give to X, Y, or Z because of that. So.
Well, that $10 matters, right? It mattered for you.
For that tiny church, it did.
Absolutely. Like,
I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
It does matter. You could buy 2 coffees for that, which means a pastor could take somebody out for coffees.
One-on-ones. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think too, that like gets to this idea that you were part of the community.
Yeah.
I love, and when I think about like, so that question, like, why do you give to the church? And it is because I'm part of the community, right? Like when we say we're a member, when we commit to be a part of the community, we're committing to support the work that community does. And some of us are able to support at different levels, and we're able to support differently throughout our lives, right? Like there's different times in our lives when we're able to give more than others. And I love that, because it's like, as a community, when we all do what we can, there is enough to do the work that God has put before us.
Yeah.
So why do we give to the church? Because we as pastors give financially too, to the things that we care about, including our churches.
Yeah. I think for me, why do I give to the church is the same. So I do tithe. I tithe to to the church. And there are other things that Adam and I have made a decision that we want to give to. We have dues for, Democratic Socialists of America. We give to other institutions we're a part of. And I think the reasons are similar. I think when we decide what we're going to give to, we ask a few questions. We ask, what is this community building? What is it? What is the vision that they're building towards? What is this? Do I have say in this? What this institution is doing? Do I have access to decision-making power? Or is someone else going to make all the decisions about what my money is going to be doing? Right? Those things are important to us when we think about that. With the church, obviously, it's different because for us, there's that extra layer of like, this is God's money. This is a witness that money is not going to be more important than God. But I think, why do I give to the church? I give to the church, to our churches, because I believe in what God is doing, in God's work that we're participating in. There aren't. Let me say it a different way. I am so moved by the extraordinary and ordinary work. I'm moved by these grand visions of anti-racism and building the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. And I'm equally moved by showing up with, I'm going to get choked up about it, but like showing up with meals when someone has a baby or there's a death, like both of like those things, the ordinary and extraordinary matter so deeply and have mattered so deeply in my own personal life that I feel compelled to give. And yes, it's God's money. I think that's true. And I don't know that I find that super motivating, but even if I believe it, but I do find it motivating to look at look at the witness that we are able to be in our communities and know that I have had a hand in making that happen. Not just in the work that I do, but in the resources, the financial resources that I can provide to the congregations, whether small or big, right? There's been, there's times in my life I can give more, and there's times I can't give very much. And there's been times I can't give very much. But what I can give, everything I've given to the church has been in the service of building up, the world as God would have it. And that's kind of an amazing thing to look back on your life and say, hey, I did that. Right? I was part of that.
Mm-hmm. Hope, what about you? Why do you give to the church?
Yeah, to me, it is about the community and believing in what the church is doing. As much as it's like we're a part of it as leaders, but I think even as members, right? Like when we are members of the church, we have ownership over that, and it says something when we say, not just that we attend or that we're there, but that we're willing to also put our material treasure, into what this church is doing. I believe I give to each of our congregations. Sometimes it's like the way the co-op is, works together. And I believe in what Big Shoulders Church is doing in reaching Portage Park and doing something new in the neighborhood and being a place where all people are loved. And I love what Grace is doing in being committed to figuring out a way for its building to be open to the community and what that relationship is going to look like. I'm deeply moved by what United Church of Rogers Park does and all of the ministries, and being committed to knowing our neighbors and being present to our different neighborhoods, right? Like each congregation is different and has made a commitment to their neighborhoods that I believe in. And I believe that we do it because of our faith, right? Like because of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done in our lives and in our worlds. When we say God with us, I want to give to support that continued witness in the world. How about you, Erin?
Yeah. I give for lots of reasons that you all already said, and because I firmly believe that there are people who still have not heard a message about Jesus that has been compelling or that convinces them that they are loved. And so I give because I want others to hear that. And I know that it requires money to get out there, to be in the public and to be present. It requires money to show up for beer and Bible and be willing to pay for the beer. It requires money to pass out cookies and have flyers printed. It requires money to host a website, all these like little tiny things that add up to be an evangelistic presence in the world, in the hopes that someone will find in desperate need the love of Jesus and feel it in our community and know it. And so I give for like future generations, maybe, if I can claim that. But yeah. So now is a time in our worship and in our lives that we are doing giving and asking our churches several intimate questions about why they give, why you personally give, and then also inviting people to consider how you give in the future. So we'll be asking people to think about, pray about making a pledge to their church. A pledge is a commitment of what you will give in the coming years so that we can plan a budget faithfully. And then you can always give starting now, setting up recurring gifts, and we'll put those links below this video. But it's an interesting time to be talking about money when there are labor shortages, but also people discerning what they want to do for the rest of their lives because they've been impacted by being stuck inside for a long time, when there's a lot of division in our world, and there's also like the threat of inflation. And so there's uncertainty around what money means in our lives. And then there's also our longer history as a people of God who have had money threatened, had our livelihoods threatened, and then also trusted that God has gone with us into the future and carried us through, trusted the community to help us and carry us through with God's help. So we're thankful for those who are able to give because they believe in what God is doing in our co-op, our 3 churches. So thanks, Hope and Lindsey, for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you all.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.